Ball games as symbols. The War of the Balls. Dedication. This chapter is dedicated to all of the black men who, through sports and through ball games in particular, symbolically are recapturing the balls, for that is also a part of the struggle. They are forcing the oppressors of black people up against the psychological wall and thereby heightening the contradiction. Sometimes during certain periods, there is conscious focusing on certain segments of reality data, and later, due to the dynamics within the total environment, the same body of data slips into the realm of unconsciousness for individuals as well as for the total collective. For example, in the framework of the white supremacy system, culture, in its current phase of refinement, it is no longer in vogue to lynch black men, hang them on trees, and castrate them. It is no longer the style to speak overtly in terms of killing niggers. Thus, there are many who believe that these activities, these thoughts and acts, have ceased to be a part of reality within the culture. However, these modes of thought and behavior were handled consciously and overtly in the recent past, only until ball games became fully established as the major national pastime in the Western civilization. Genite annihilation and the white psycho. The global white supremacy system. Culture is the sum total of the conscious well, as the unconscious tactics, strategies, and methodologies evolved in all areas of people activity. Additionally, these maneuvers seek to prevent white genetic annihilation and attempt to resolve the psychological anxiety and tension related to that ever-present threat. Thus, the tasks of white supremacy domination require constant vigilance. The deep pervading fear of white genetic annihilation in the white psyche has caused a neurotic preoccupation with genes, genetic, material, and those aspects of the human anatomy that either contain or transport the genetic material in the sexual act. Since black or other males of color are the only ones who actually can initiate and carry forth the act of white genetic annihilation through sexual intercourse, the white preoccupation is specifically with male genitalia, namely the testicles and the penis. The testicles contain the genetic material, and the penis transports the genetic material in the act of ejaculation. Thus, in the white brain computer, there is a dominant association between balls and contests of power. Because this white genetic survival conflict is not handled overtly and consciously, there is a neurotic preoccupation in the white psyche with genes, genetic material, testicles, and penises. Yet at another level, the preoccupation is actually with warfare. Continuous warfare is required to prevent the genetic annihilation of the global white minority. Warfare in this sense refers to the domination and destruction of all people of color, particularly black males and their balls, by every necessary means, which have included the initiation of infertility epidemics in Africa. Games. Although there are commonly held views that games are merely a form of play and entertainment even when they are played professionally, and that for most people the permanent fascination of games lies simply in the pure joy of playing them, the child psychiatrist realizes that for the young, games and play are the work of children. It is one of the means by which, through the handling of toys and objects in a symbolic way, children master adult role expectations and attempt to resolve unconscious conflicts brought about by the dynamics and interplay of factors in their surrounding environment. Play and games then become the child's unconscious attempt to master the environment, its conflicts and threats to the child's sense of security. Those who have taken the trouble to study games throughout the world realize that not only the play and games of children, but most, specifically the games in adult life as participated in by a given people, reflect their history, folklore, traditions, and conflicts. Frederick V. Grunfeld, in his book Games of the World, has stated, though the modes of games play tend to remain constant, their symbolism is often influenced by contemporary events, particularly by the politics of the day. During the Napoleonic Wars, for example, chess sets were made showing Napoleon as general, Napoleon as first consul, Napoleon as emperor, always, of course, with the Corsican assuming the position of the white king. The suggestion here is that all ball games in the white supremacy system, culture similarly play out, at an unconscious level, dominant political concerns. The fundamental power concern in the white supremacy system, culture, is white genetic survival through white supremacy domination. Such domination can be established and maintained only if white males and females control all of the balls of non-white men, off and on the playing fields and ball courts. In other words, the name of the real game, the power game, is continuous worldwide control of the testicles of all non-white men by white males and females as the only means of ensuring white genetic survival in a world where the melanin-producing genetic material of non-whites is dominant. Without control of the non-white genetic material, whites will be annihilated genetically. Since these facts of genetic reality can be neither denied nor discussed at the conscious level of brain activity, this dominant theme is manifested daily at the symbolic level, via games with symbolic balls, footballs, baseballs, soccer balls, handballs, golf balls, ping pong balls, earth balls, hockey pucks, etc. These symbolic ball games have a highly important role to play at the unconscious level, informing all white males especially, but also females, to keep their attention and their eyes constantly fixed on the balls as a matter of life and death. Another popular ball game played with a smaller white ball is baseball. Baseball was the great all-time American sport until a black man, Hank Aaron, became the world's greatest hitter of that white ball, hitting it with a brown or black bat. It is little wonder that as he moved ever closer to taking the title of control away from the white bee Jack Ruth, Aaron began to receive letters from white people threatening his life. This behavior remains incomprehensible unless one is aware that the white ball is symbolic of the white testicles that a black man had knocked out of the ballpark. The black man, in this manner, controls the symbolic small white testicles. This is not psychologically tolerable in the white supremacy culture, as it represents white genetic annihilation, for which whites traditionally have killed to prevent. This unconscious response to non-whites controlling white balls clarifies the reason that a couple of years ago the American Little League team, which consistently was being beaten by non-white children in Taiwan, was prevented from competing further with these non-white children. And now the American children are prohibited from playing with the Taiwanese teams. White male children must not be confronted with non-white children controlling white balls. Such a continuing experience is totally inconsistent with the optimal development of the white supremacy psyche, as well as with the white male's survival need to control all of the balls on the planet Earth. Next, smaller in diameter in the white ball series is the tennis ball. To date, there has been only one black male world champion controller of that small white ball, Arthur Ashe, although amongst blacks, Althea Gibson became a master of the white ball before Ashe. Is it only a coincidence that when Ashe began to play tennis with champion force, the game then allowed the introduction of colored tennis balls in major tournaments? A black male is just not supposed to bat a small white ball into total submission. Ashe became the #1 world tennis champion in 1975, but he did not sustain that position in 1976. Ashe has been quoted as saying that he does not play just to win, but for the enjoyment of the sport. This attitude is in stark contrast to that of Jimmy Connors, who has stated that he plays only to win and has described his approach to the game as a killer instinct. I can imagine the psychological pressure put on Arthur Ashe as long as he remained in the position of champion controlling the small white tennis balls. The smallest ball in the popular white ball series is the golf ball. Like tennis, golf has been the ball game of the most powerful males in the white supremacy system, culture. However, like tennis, it is spreading slowly throughout the white supremacy culture to include large numbers of white and non-white females. Interestingly, golf, the most elite of all of the ball games in the white supremacy culture, is played with a long dark-colored stick or iron tied between the legs. This iron is smashed against the side of a very small white ball. The object is to knock this small white ball into a hole in the black earth. By attempting to place his small white ball in the black earth using a long dark stick, again the white male is attempting to identify with the possession of the genital equipment and privilege of the black male, whose rightful partner is the black female. If this pattern of play in golf does not qualify as the very essence of male genital symbolism and neurotic conflict in the white male psyche as formulated in this specific discussion, then nothing does. Again, is it only a coincidence that the major event in golf competition should be called the Masters Tournament? Is this not a fitting title for the most elite of all ball games played by the masters of the master race? One final question. Is it a reflection of white male self-hate and self-rejection and rejection of the inadequacy of the white testicles that the games played with small white balls involve the balls being attacked, hit, struck, and knocked far away from the body in an act of masochism, whereas by contrast, the games played with large brown balls involve holding on to and possessing the balls? No large brown balls are struck with objects in the white supremacy culture's popular ball. The high-level anxiety and fear associated with the continuous threat to white genetic survival must be played out symbolically through the numerous forms of ball games. All of these games are played mainly by men, are centered on who has the ball, and are concerned with who finally controls the ball when the game ends. The anxiety and tension that accompanies ball games is parallel to the anxiety and tension experienced at the thought in the white psyche of white genetic annihilation. Similarly, the increasing violence that accompanies ball games parallels the increasing level of violence needed to maintain global white supremacy, as the entire non-white world seeks its liberation from white domination. Some of these highly symbolic ball games are played with white balls and others are played with colored balls, usually black or brown. Generally, the white balls are small in size, whereas the colored balls are much larger in size, paralleling the respective genetic power in the white and colored testicles. Currently, the most popular games, those that attract most male attention, are played with big brown balls. This rise in popularity of colored balls parallels the rise in power at the global level of the third world or non-white nations. Also, as white females demand their liberation from white males in order to become co-equals in running the global system of white supremacy, they simultaneously seek expression of this equality by participating in all of the ball games, including football and basketball. At the same time, white females step up their sexual aggression toward black male males, greatly increasing the incidence of white, obtains control of the black and other non-white male balls as the threat to white domination, and thus, the threat to white genetic survival increase at the global level. A mass hysteria develops over playing with balls until the entire society and social system is either watching or playing ball games. It is of little wonder that violence is becoming an increasingly dominant aspect of ball games when it is understood that behind the symbolism of the ball games is the very survival of the white race. When war is in progress, the top priority is always the status of the war. White supremacy is war against all persons classified as non-white. In the meantime, the balls are passed, hit, bounced, dribbled, batted, punted, kicked, thrown, shot, rolled, struck, driven, caught, and captured to see who is the final possessor of the balls, or to see who is the most agile, astute, or strongest in mastering and controlling the balls. Another point that effectively reveals the relationship of ball games to the white psyche and emphasizes the extent to which balls are a symbolic preoccupation is the reference in the white supremacy system culture to the act of sexual intercourse as bailing. The ball fantasy in the white psyche can best be stated as, if the balls can be controlled on the court or the playing field or through ownership, they can also be owned and controlled in real life. It is little wonder that in contrast to black males, white males play ball games as though they are a matter of life and death, and not as though they are simply to be enjoyed. When whites lose control of the balls, whiteness becomes extinct. It is no accident that the phrase to black ball, in the language of the white supremacy culture, means to exclude and to have the power to exclude. Similarly, the genetic material in the black testicles has the power to genetically exclude or annihilate the recessive genetic material in the white testicles. Hence, one drop of black blood makes you black, a highly familiar expression in the white supremacy culture. Specific ball games. Close examination of specific phenomena in ball games that are popular in the white supremacy culture will support the preceding discussion. In the game of billiards or pool, there are 8 colored balls, a white ball, and a long dark stick placed on a table. The object of the game is to use the long stick in causing the white ball to knock all of the colored balls under the table. The last colored ball knocked under the table is the black ball. When the game is over, the white ball is the only ball that remains on top of the table with the long dark stick. Then the game starts again. Bowling is also an interesting ball game in the white supremacy culture. Usually this game is played with a large black ball being rolled forcefully down an alley, where it is expected to knock down 10 white pins. The central pin is referred to as the king pin. Clearly, the bowling pins are white and in shape are phallic symbols. In other words, the pins are white phallic symbols that are knocked asunder by a heavy black ball, over which the bowler attempts to gain mastery. In symbolic fantasy, the bowler sees himself as master and possessor of the larger black ball, and thereby in control of the harm it can bring to the white male genital apparatus. Bowling was introduced to America by Dutch colonists in the 18th century. It is a derivative of the French game guilles that was brought to England in the 19th century and later to Germany. Games that consist of throwing balls of various sizes date back to ancient Rome and Greece, early cultures that had extensive contact with black men in Africa. A modern French derivative of that ancient game is jeu de boule. F. E. Grunfeld states, "The French play boules with what has been described as a mild fanaticism." It is well to recall that a considerable period of French history was spent controlling black and brown men in Africa and Asia. Earthball is a modern American version of an ancient game. It is played as a struggle between two teams or tribes who jostle, rush, push, and elbow one another to move the large dark ball in the desired direction and to gain possession of it. The game attempts to develop a sense of common purpose amongst the members of the tribe or team. This game was started in California, with most, if not all, players being white. The importance of games utilizing large brown balls in the white supremacy culture is of special interest. The most important of these games are football and basketball. Is it only an accident that black males, now that they have been allowed to play, have become the most outstanding players in these sports, nationally and internationally? Is it only an accident that in the game of football, the field general almost always must be white, no matter the color of the other players? And, of course, the owners always must be white, so that no matter who wins or who is the star, the white owners control the big brown balls and who gets to play with them. It is of symbolic importance that the large brown basketball is thrown into a circular opening that can be viewed as a symbol of the white female vaginal orifice. Similarly, the large brown football is kicked through a white upright opening that can be viewed, again symbolically, as the uplifted legs of a white female in the act of sexual intercourse. Perhaps unconsciously, the white male psyche considers here that the white female's preferred sexual choice is tall, dark, and handsome. In tossing or kicking the large brown balls into the white net or the white goalposts, the white male is able to fantasize that he is satisfying the white female maximally via an identification with the black male in the brown balls, which the white male in play believes he now possesses or controls. This writer is reminded here that a common underground thought and saying of white men is that they are not really men until they have had sexual intercourse with a black female. This again is a demonstration of white males fantasizing that they are in the customary role of the black males, whose genitals they apparently admire and envy. Thus, the black male is their true standard of real manhood and genetic power, the ultimate controller of the black ball. As white males attempt to master the placement of these large brown playing balls in openings, their activity can be viewed as attempts to resolve the dilemma of their self-questioned manhood. Their manhood is always in question because of their genetic recessive status compared to the genetic dominance of the world's majority. In this regard, it is not surprising that large numbers of white females hang around black basketball and football players, and that these black males often are trapped into sexual involvement by these white females. The black male ball players, in turn, also are conditioned under white supremacy domination to want to place brown balls in white nets as a mark of supposed true black manhood, since black males refer to white males as the man. In placing brown balls in white nets in between white goalposts, the black males in fantasy become the man. Hockey, a sport that black men are not allowed to play in the white supremacy culture, also consists of attempting to place a round black object into a white net opening. The object that is used to place the black puck in the opening is a long colored stick. White males fight ferociously among themselves to get the black round object in the white net opening. Apparently, for the white male psyche, it is anathema to have to compete with a black male in this challenge, controlling a black ball and a black stick and getting the black object into the symbolic white net opening on the white ice field. Soccer, or European football, traditionally is played with a white ball, smaller than the large brown football and basketball. This sport is less popular in the United States, but it is very popular in Central and South America. The white soccer ball is not to be touched with the hands, it is knocked and kicked. The kicking of the white ball becomes a very violent and vicious activity. Again, however, the greatest player, the master of the large white ball, turned out to be the black Brazilian Pelé, who married a white female. The owners of the professional soccer teams also remain white, of course. Games. There is indeed significance in these facts, and even though the large black bowling ball is rolled away from the body, its aim is to knock down symbols of the white phallus. Further, is there parallel significance in the fact that the most powerful man in the global white supremacy system, on the day of his departure from office after losing the presidential election, left immediately to play golf, to beat the small white balls masochistically across the fairway in his hour of defeat and humiliation? It is of further note that his predecessor, who was forced from office in absolute disgrace, also spends much of his time on the golf course beating small white balls. It seems of interest that the more powerful the white male becomes in the context of the white supremacy culture, the smaller the ball that becomes his focus of attention. Is this because the more the white male achieves what he wanted to believe was real power, the greater the realization that his perception was only an inadequate compensation for a fundamental lack of true power, genetic power? Is it not also curious that when white males are young and vigorous, they attempt to master the large brown balls, but as they become older and wiser, they psychologically resign themselves to their inability to master the large brown balls? Their focus then shifts masochistically to hitting the tiny white golf balls in disgust and resignation, in full final realization of white genetic recessiveness. It would be of further interest to ascertain the number of army generals in the white supremacy system who play golf while planning for race war or the destruction of non-white genetic material. After the Chinese, a non-white people under white supremacy domination for many decades, were able to chase the whites out their country, the most popular ball game in China became ping pong. The object of this ball game is to smash a tiny white ball back and forth across a table, perhaps in unconscious retaliation for the humiliation imposed upon the Chinese people by the whites. The Chinese finally mastered the white balls. Similarly, golf and baseball, two white ball games, have become the most popular ball games in Japan, a country of non-white people conquered, attacked, and humiliated in atomic war by white people. Perhaps at the conscious level, the Japanese people believe they are imitating their conquerors, whom they admire. At the unconscious level, however, they are in turn humiliating the inadequacy of the white testicles or balls. The dynamics that motivate the conquered and the conquerors are never the same. Is there also a connection between the defeat of highly armed Americans in the Vietnam War, wherein white males were beaten by a tiny nation of non-white people, and the fantastic increase in the popularity of tennis throughout the U.S.? The entire U.S. nation since the close of the Vietnam War has begun to beat the small white tennis balls, the symbolic white testicles, following a humiliating defeat for the American nation. Or did tennis just become popular after Watergate? Furthermore, is it just a coincidence that there was a greatly increased interest of white females in tennis at the same time that they began their women's liberation movement, a movement that attacks white males and their sense of superiority, a movement that has referred to white males as male chauvinist pigs? Through the game of tennis, white females symbolically can attack the white testicles, the part of the anatomy that is supposed to make the white male superior to the white female. Is this also why tennis is becoming increasingly popular among blacks in America? Also, is there a relationship among the number of white males seeking sex change operations, the number of white male physicians willing to perform this surgery, and the white males' loss of the Vietnam War to non-white men, as well as the rise in power of non-white men in general on the planet? I wish an ever-increasing success to all black males who participate in ball games, and I look forward to the day when the majority of quarterbacks are black, or at least in proportion to the number of black football players. Still, the most important message in this essay is that in the last 100 years, the white collective simply has moved from the overt sport and entertainment of lynching and castrating black men, thereby controlling their balls, to a more highly refined series of symbolic representations of the same act, ball games. And, whether through lynching and castration or modern ball games, the object and neurotic preoccupation is the same. The white male seeks to prevent non-white males from ever controlling white balls, and therefore they must control the anatomical balls and the contents of the colored anatomical balls, the genes of non-white men, that threaten white genetic survival. Ball games merely reflect the white collective's admiration and fear of black testicles, their contempt for white testicles, and their willingness to fight, no matter how violently, to maintain control of the balls on all fields and courts, which symbolize every place on earth. This neurotic preoccupation of whites is, of course, essential for the genetic survival of their race. The rules may change, but the real game is always the same. This deep significance of balls in the context of the white supremacy system Culture cannot be discussed overtly without causing the collapse of the entire political and psychological white supremacy edifice. Events in the world of symbolism are far ahead of events in the world of conscious reality, because the former represents a more complete recording of the totality of reality data in the brain computer. Thus, through the world of symbolism, perhaps we can gain insight into the world of reality that must be mastered. By decoding and translating symbols, we can confront those aspects of reality that generally we would prefer to ignore. Norman O'Brown's statement in Love's Body sums it up. The axis on which world history turns is symbolism. The axis of world history is making conscious the unconscious. Ball games equal to war of the balls, equal to war of the testicles, equal to war of the genes, equal to race war.